Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel where today we are taking a look at all the books that I did not finish in the month of November. It's a lot. I ended up DNFing 8 books in November, and so I didn't really want to bog down my wrap up, and so I just decided to pull them all out and have its own separate video. But I did find that my DNFs kind of fell into one of two categories. The first category is just like I maybe had a few nitpicky things, but for the most part, I just didn't care. And so I ended up DNFing because I just did not care about the book at all. And then there was the other group, the other category, which was I actually DNF'd it for a specific reason. So, because there's 8 books, which is a lot to get through, let's just go ahead and jump right in with the first category, and that's all the books that I just honestly didn't end up caring about. And let's start with The Leveler by Julia Durango. So, this is a young adult science fiction story, and in this world, there is a virtual reality game kind of thing that everybody likes to play. When you go in, your body is basically unconscious, and so because of that, there is a time limit for how long you can be in there, but you can pretty easily find people who have hacked the code and pay them so that you can stay in longer. But enter our main character of Nixie, who has this part-time job where she goes after wayward teenagers who have done this and their parents want them home. And then she is hired by the CEO of this virtual reality company to go in and find his son because his son has gone into this virtual reality world and has no intention of coming back out. And honestly, I just didn't care. I read 60 pages of this and it was fine, but I think my biggest problem is that a couple months ago I read Slay, which had this really lush, interesting virtual reality world. So when I got to this one, it just kind of fell flat. So I DNF'd it. After that, we have The Oathbreaker Shadow by Amy McCulloch. This is the first book in a series, I believe, but it is a young adult fantasy, and we have this culture which takes oaths very seriously. When you make an oath, you and the person you are making the oath to tie a knot, and if you break your oath, it marks you permanently, and you are tossed out of society and hunted down by vengeful shadows, which means you're probably going to die soon. But enter our main character of Raim, and he has a tiny knot on his wrist that he has had for literally as long as he can remember. He has no idea what it's for. And then he goes to make an oath to the king, I think, and his knot bursts and marks him as an oath breaker, and the story goes from there. Now, I DNF'd this at page 25, and it was because it seemed that there was some world building contradictions. I say seem because I don't know if it's explained later, or I needed to just kind of get through it. But honestly, it's a personal problem, and this is why I'm putting it in this category. I became really fixated on this contradiction. Like, I just could not let it go. And so I was just like, so I couldn't enjoy this story. So I'm just getting rid of it. I'm not going to worry about it. I don't know. It might not be a contradiction. If it sounds interesting, try it. Maybe let me know. After that, I had Avalon by Mindee Arnett, and this is a young adult science fiction, and it follows our main character of Jeth, who is the leader of a band of teenage thieves, and they are in space, and they are tracking down metatech, which allows for faster than light travel, and he steals it, and then he takes it back to his mob boss, and he gets credit for it, and he is trying to get enough credit to pay off his parents' ship, the Avalon. Honestly, you guys, I just didn't care. There's really nothing bad that I saw about this book. As long as you can suspend disbelief that there is a band of amazing teenage thieves, you'll be fine. I DNF'd this at page 25 because I just did not care. And then the last book is The Veil by Chloe Neill, and this is the first book in the Devil's Isle series. This is an not adult science fiction. It's adult urban fantasy series. And the premise is that there was a veil between the earth and the magic world, and then it ripped. And then there was a war between Earth and all the magic folk that came through the veil. And now the veil is all sealed up. And all the magic folk have been rounded up and put into a compound. Enter our main character of Claire, who was affected by the magic and now has powers. So she's technically supposed to be in that compound, but she's in hiding. And then she uses her powers to save somebody and gets caught. The story goes from there. You guys, this is actually a really interesting premise. I just didn't think that, like, the world building was fine. The characters were fine. The story was fine. I didn't like the writing style, but like nothing about it was really pulled me into this story. So if you're really into adult urban fantasy, though, this is a fairly original entry into that genre. And I read, I think, like 40 pages of that. So now we get into the books that I DNF for a reason. And so we're going to start with Queen of the Concord by Kacen, Callender. So this is a young adult fantasy, I think the first book in a duology. And we're following our main character of Sigourney, who has vowed revenge on the people who killed her family. She lives in this society where this nation of islands, and the landowners, nobles, are all white foreigners, and the slaves are all black natives. And Sigourney is in a weird position because she is a black native who happens to also be noble. And her revenge plan really hinges upon her being a noble. So the thing about this is that I really just didn't like Sigourney. So there's also super flowery writing, by the way. There's really flowery writing. It gave me a headache in the first 50 pages, and then after that it calmed down. So I didn't like that either. But mostly it was Sigourney. She just really couldn't quite commit to this whole thing. Like, she was kind of like, she understood why everybody hated her. Like, the white nobles are going to hate her because, like, it's a slave that rose above her station kind of thing. And the slaves hate her because, like, she has to treat them like crap, like slaves, to hold on to her position as a noble, right? And she gets it, but she definitely has these pity parties, which I was, like, dealing with, and it was okay. But at around page 150, which is where I DNF this book, she was kind of like, but don't they understand that I'm doing this for them, the slaves? And it's just like, no, they don't. You know why? Because you can't tell them. Because as soon as you tell them, you out yourself in your plan, and then everybody's going to kill you, literally. So it was just that kind of thing where I'm like, I just can't with you. Like, either commit to your cause and deal with everybody hating you, or stop. Just decide you're not going to get revenge and leave the islands. It's fine. So I ended up DNFing this at page 150. I will say, if you have issues with graphic violence, that you might want to check some of this stuff, because it's all the violence is against slaves, and it is described very dispassionately, which also kind of makes it a little bit more gruesome. So just, if you need that content warning, I would look into this one before you give it a go. Next up, we have Tess of the Road by Rachel Hartman. This is young adult fantasy, I think a standalone. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a series or not. But this is set in the world of the author's previous duology entitled Seraphina. But in this one, we are following our main character of Tess. Tess has made some mistakes in her life, and they have some big consequences. And so the family has decided that she needs to be sent to a nunnery. And Tess decides that she doesn't want to go. So the day that she's supposed to go to the nunnery, she grabs her boots and hits the road and just sees where the road is going to take her. I didn't like this book. So the problem with this one for me is all the characters were just awful. They really were. Now, Tess is awful for understandable reasons. She had the crappiest of crappy childhoods. She was a difficult child anyway, who had parents who really didn't know what to do with her. And so it was just always going to be a bad situation. But when we meet Tess, she is a bitter drunk. And I'm like, I don't care about this journey that you're going to go on. This journey, I know what this is. It's a redemption, right? It's going to be you finally free and able to experience life, and you're going to grow as a person, and eventually you're going to figure out your place in life, and that's all fine and good. And I don't care, because for me, like, I know that there are a lot of people out there who really like those redemption arcs of the really tough cases, and I am just not one of them. And then the cherry on the top is that I really liked Rachel Hartman's previous work, Serafina. Serafina was my favorite character. And Serafina happens to be Tess's older sister, half sister. And the way that Serafina is written in this book, it's like she's just a horrible, horrible person. And so, like, to see my favorite character just written in a way that like she's just this horrible person, I hated it. I hated it so much. So I DNF this around page 100. After that, we have The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. This is an adult fantasy story that follows our main character of Tau, who lives in this culture who has been at war. The culture has been at war for like 200 years, you guys. And Tau is maybe not quite so set on like being part of this warrior culture, and he's making plans for how he could maybe do something a little different. When something happens and he ends up vowing revenge. And the story goes from there. So my problem with this book actually started with the prologue when we found out the reason for this war. Essentially, almost 200 years ago, Tau's people left their homeland for their own safety. Fine, totally good. They get in boats and they travel along, and they have hit the point in the journey where they just have to find land to settle. Like, they just don't have any more choices. Like, it's also, this journey has become very unsafe for them. So they find some land and they settle there. Well, guess what, guys? That land was already inhabited. So this war is between Tau's people and the original inhabitants. And I just don't care about this war. I don't care. I kind of want them to lose. I want the inhabitants to beat them. So that really bothered me. And so then, like, Tau was okay, especially because he's like, I don't think I'm into this. But I know that with the revenge part of it, he's going to throw himself into the military. And I'm just like, I don't care. I just don't like any of this. And part of it was also some world building issues. For example, like, this is supposed to be a matriarchal society, but like women don't have the powers. So I DNF this around page 100. And then the last book that I need to talk about, and that is Qualify by Vera Nazarian. And this is the first book in the Atlantis Grail series, which is a young adult science fiction series. So the year is 2047. There is an asteroid that is headed towards Earth. It is going to hit Earth and cause mass extinctions. And then a spaceship appears on the horizon, and it turns out has Atlanteans on board. So people from Earth who lived in Atlantis left Earth in a spaceship and went and colonized another planet. And those same people are coming back because they found out Earth was in trouble. They basically say, hey, we can't do anything about the asteroid, but we can take some of you back with us to our colony. And so the Atlanteans set up a series of tests, I guess, to find the most qualified people to take back with them. Enter our main character of Gwen, who is a teenager and just trying to qualify. So this is one of those premises that you do have to execute it just right, and unfortunately the author did not. I found that it fell flat. I will also say, if you don't love like young adult tropes, this probably isn't going to be a great book for you, because it seems like there are a lot that are going to be in play and not done necessarily in a very original kind of way. But the big problem I had was actually with the characters, because they were all overblown stereotypes of the groups that they belong to, whether that's the mean kids or the close-knit family or the sassy black friend. So I was annoyed when it was like the mean kids, but once we started getting into the big overblown stereotypes of minority groups, I was just like, I don't like this. But the thing that really killed it for me is that there is a wheelchair user in this, and I don't think that the author did any research into disability issues at large and wheelchair user issues specifically. And it's not because of how the teenagers interacted with each other. It's really how the author chose to write it, including the fact that there is inspiration porn. So it was just, I really, really didn't like it. And I ended up DNFing this around page 100. So that's it, you guys. Those are all 8 books that I DNF'd in the month of November. Comment down below if you agree or disagree. If you know about, by the way, Oathbreaker Shadow and whether that world building thing resolves itself, come talk to me. Let me know, because that's been bothering me. I'm still fixated on it. But that's it, you guys. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. But that's all I have. So until next time, have happy reading, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.